Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the February 13th, 2020 meeting of the Burlington Conservation Commission. The first item after calling the meeting to order is citizens' time. Is there anyone here that wants to talk about anything not on the agenda? Nope. Okay, we'll move on from that. The record will show nobody volunteered for that. We have approval of minutes, January 23rd, 2020. Are we in a position to approve? Sure. Any comments? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4-0-1 is the vote. One abstention. Next, we have a request for a certificate of compliance, release of the surety at 5 Murphy Court. This is lot number 3, Robert W. Murray, DEP file number 122-612.
Good
evening.
Phyllis Setzel, I'm here representing Mr. Murray.
All right.
A request for a certificate of compliance.
Sure,
at 5
good.
Murphy Court.
Right, good to see you.
Nice to see you.
All right. Okay, we were out yesterday at the site. Why don't we see what John or Eileen has to say?
Okay, so the commission did a site walk. So this is one of 3 orders of conditions out on the site. There's an order of conditions for the cul-de-sac, the subdivision cul-de-sac. There's an order of conditions for this lot, which is the lot on the right of the cul-de-sac as you go in. There's another one for the house on the left, which is under construction. So this is the first request for a certificate of compliance in the project. I think, as the commission saw, it's all constructed. The landscaping is done. The grass is a little sparse, but there didn't seem to be any erosion issues. And actually the limit of work is a pretty good distance from the wetlands anyway. So I didn't really see any issues.
All right. For those who were there, anybody on the right have a comment? No, fine with me. Anybody on the left have a comment?
Just a little bit of trash that we saw that had blown in the back there. Looked like some of the insulation, lightweight stuff that might have blown back, but it was behind the completed house, but it probably came from the construction that's currently going on. There was a few pieces of like blue foam that had blown down there or something. That was really the only thing that I noticed.
Okay.
So
And
keep an eye on it. Probably those windy days that we had.
Yeah. That house is occupied too, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Gail, anything from your end? There's nothing on my end. Like, the grass is a little sparse, but it's winter and it's probably going to fill in anyway. So
It's planted.
it's planted.
Yeah.
All right. So are you recommending, John, release, certificate and release of the bond?
Yes.
Okay, how much is the bond?
$5,000.
Okay. All right, then. Could I have a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 5 Murphy Court, lot number 3, for Robert W. Murray, DEP file number 122-612?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 5-0-0. Can I have a motion for a full release of the $5,000 surety for 5 Murphy Court, lot 3, Robert W. Murray, again, DEP file number 122-612?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Same vote. You all set?
Thank you.
You're entirely welcome. Okay, so now we have item 4A. Notice is given that the commission will hold a public meeting during which time we have a request for determination of applicability. It was filed by the town of Burlington, the DPW department. And the commission will be taking information related to the proposed installation of a water main within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands at 28 Adams Street. And the commission will thereafter issue a determination. The application's being heard pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 133, Section 40, which is the Wetlands Protection Act, and under Burlington Bylaw, Article 14, the project application's available for review in the Conservation Office. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Tom Hayes. I'm the town engineer. I'm here with Steve Hildreth. Steve is the design engineer. This phase of the project as well as the project manager for the overall project. What we're presenting tonight is phase 1 of our MWA water connection. And without stealing Steve's thunder, I'll let him walk through the project.
Okay.
All right, well, good evening. As Tom said, I'm Stephen Hildreth. We're here before you tonight just to seek the request for determination of applicability. The project, just briefly as a whole, is going to be the installation of a new 24-inch water main in Adams Street. The connection point is actually going to start in Lexington at the intersections of North Street and Adams Street. It's going to start with a 12-inch connection and increase up to 24. Cross into the town line, all the way down Adams Street in the paved right-of-way. It's going to take a bit of a jog off the pavement as you see towards a corrosion control shed, and then come back out into the paved right-of-way, and then continue down Adams Street and make a final connection into Middlesex Turnpike. As you can see from the plans, we propose to just, on the Quinn Perkins site where the town of Burlington owns, do a little bit of regrading in there. And final elevation is actually going to be up out of floodplain. We have a certified map showing with the planning filing that we have that floodplain elevation up there is 176, and we're actually going to be up in about the 190 foot elevation, so we're well out of the floodplain. And then along kind of the adjacent to the wetlands area, we're going to install some hay bales and silt fence to protect against any erosion runoff during the project. Any catch basins in the vicinity are going to be covered with silt sacks. And then everything that's going to be stockpiled is going to be put back in the trench. Nothing's going to be left overnight, and we'll sweep it through. Pretty straightforward. Going to kind of just open up the hole, put the pipe back in, and just cover it right back up.
Okay. All right, so. All right, John or Eileen, do you have comments?
Just to kind of reiterate what Stephen said, that the pipe is running down through Adams Street. It appears that it's BLSF, it's floodplain. However, as Stephen said, they have certified elevations to say that they're actually above the floodplain. They're close to wetlands, but they're proposing to put in erosion controls between the work of the wetlands. They're also within the riverfront area of a regulatory stream. However, that appears to be culverted under the road there, so I don't really see it having an impact on the stream either.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just going to be a replacing pipe in place.
Okay. All right. You have any concerns that we need to be discussed?
I don't think so.
No. All right. All right. Ed, anything, John?
Nothing we do.
Bill?
I have a couple questions. First, could you tell me again what the jog is all about? I missed it in your explanation.
I can get up. I'll speak to the plan a little bit too.
Yeah, please.
Is this on? Okay. So as you can see, this is the pipe coming in from Lexington here. This building right here, we need to install what's called corrosion control.
Corrosion control. Okay.
Yeah, so it just prevents long-term descaling in the water and any kind of like mixing. It's really not that big of a concern. We actually do this at our water treatment plants anyways, but a lot of the requirements are that we need to do it as the source comes in, so we need to do it right where.
What does it actually do? Does it add chemicals to it or filter it
It just
somehow?
adds an orthophosphate chemical. It's the same thing as what you find in like a laundry detergent. It's really a very benign, it stays in the system, so it's very palatable, potable. It's nothing that's.
Okay, so it's nothing that could harm the environment if it leaked or anything like that. All right.
So you inject a phosphate into the water stream?
Yeah, at a very slow rate even, so, for the flow that's going through here.
And that's for corrosion control?
Okay, now my other question is kind of related to the project as a whole. This is phase 1.
Yep.
Ultimately, phase 2 is going to be a larger pipe, is that correct?
Phase 2 will not be a larger pipe. Phase 2 is actually all completely in Lexington. Phase 2, we have to go back because this right now is going to give us the temporary water supply that we need to fill. but phase 2, we're gonna have to pick up more in the future that we're gonna need. So that's gonna be involved in actually connecting at the Arlington-Lexington line, all the way down Lowell Street in Lexington and through Lowell, and connect it into this phase of the project.
So this pipe will be functional for phase 2 as well?
This pipe will be functional for phase 2.
Okay.
Yes. And we took this route to avoid going over the Butterfield Dam.
I heard of something that seminar I went to. It was called micro hydro energy systems, and they actually put turbines inside of major water pipes to generate electricity to the tunes of this. In Portland, Oregon, they got estimating millions of dollars of electricity generated over the next 2 decades. But it requires a couple of things. It requires a pipe that's big enough, and they're talking a 24-inch pipe.
Yep.
But the other thing it requires is that it be a gravity-fed system. Is this type of thing gravity-fed, or is it force-fed?
This is a pressurized system.
It is a pressurized, okay, because then they were saying with this type of, the energy that's required to, well, the energy that the turbines subtract from the system would have to be made up by more pumping,
Yes.
and therefore it would be kind of wouldn't really be much of a gain. If it's a nice gravity-fed system, you can gain some, basically hydropower inside the pipes, which I said, I wonder if we could do that. But we can't if it's not gravity-fed, and it probably wouldn't be big enough anyways.
No, it's probably big enough, and it's a very good thought, but where this is a pressurized system, you'd be putting energy into the pipe, passing through a turbine, removing that energy, and then there'd be nothing again downstream unless we installed another pump to be able to pick that energy back up.
Right, so it wouldn't be a...
Yeah, so we'd effectively be kind of almost losing, the inefficient
self-defeating
battle.
system, yes,
Yes.
okay. All right, thank you for the explanation.
No
That's all
problem.
I have.
No such thing as free energy.
Well, there is in this case.
So a couple, just simple questions. One clarification about the corrosion shed. So this phosphate-based chemical that you use, is it in like a canister or something that's attached to the pipe? Like how is it injected into the?
So what it is this building is going to be above gradient, and then there's the smaller kind of, you can see it hashed out here in like orange. That's going to be an underground vaults, where there's also going to be a meter in there. Again, to go back to Larry, nothing is for free. We're going to have to pay for this. So that's where we're going to meter and inject their chemical in there. But it will be stored above ground in containment containers that we currently use at our water treatment facilities.
Inside the shed?
Inside the shed. So.
All right. And then just basic maintenance in that, not of the system, but just as the work is done, that, oftentimes when, at least I notice, when road work is done, especially when the road is dug up and have to be, resurfaced, that you find chunks of asphalt on the side of the road, especially with the wetland over there. If maybe you can, make sure that there's extra inspection to all that debris is removed and not left behind.
Understandable.
Is this pipe in groundwater or above the groundwater table?
We anticipate this being above groundwater, given that we're such the elevation above what's considered floodplain. We don't anticipate hitting any groundwater, but we do have plans for dewatering if like a perch table or something is found during the project to dewater through a silt sack and a hay bale corral.
The reason I ask is because how far away is that wetland?
That wetland is probably, I'd say, like 40 or 50 feet off the edge of the road. And that's approximate. I took that from Mass GIS.
I was just concerned about draining water off the wetland through the outside around the pipe. Do you guys put in check dams in the pipe at all when you lay it?
No check dams inside the pipe.
Not inside, I mean around the outside of the pipe?
Around the outside, we generally just will backfill in the natural material from it.
So you're not anticipating a problem with water draining along the course of the pipe?
No, we would still be elevationally above, even with the cover on this pipe, we'd still be above the elevation of the wetlands itself.
All right. How close are you to like North Street in Lexington?
To North Street, Lexington, we're making a connection right in there.
You're making it right there.
Yep.
Where is the town line? Is it at the North Street, Adams Street intersection?
Use that line right
No,
there.
it's kind of up in the top left corner, it just clips in there. But if you're actually familiar with Adams Street at all, there's the house, as you go by these wetlands into Lexington, there's a white house on your right. I believe that house is actually split between the town line.
So it's before North Street?
Yes, the town line is before North Street.
I see.
And that's that little hut that sits down low where that is?
This right here?
It's like a little,
No, that's on North Street. That's something different. I don't know.
no,
what
I'm
that-
not.
Yeah, no,
I'm
down on
Adam.
North Street is actually in Lexington, that's a sewer pump station.
That's a sewer
They
pump
have,
station.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a nice place as a terminal for the bike path.
Yes.
You can get down to the Minuteman bike path from there, even though it goes a little bit in between some neighborhoods, but it keeps going. And you can connect to downtown Lexington.
Yeah, we were actually at Lexington Concom on Monday and got our approvals there as well for.
So,
this.
how many phases is this project? I mean, you
This
said this is phase one. It just occurred to me, like, that there must be other phases.
There's ultimately probably going to be 3 phases. So the first 2 that are in plans for construction right now is phase 1, which is here before you to make the connection at North Street. Phase 2 will come all the way from the Arlington line. And then moving forward in the future, Bedford even wants to draw some water through this. So we have to extend from the connection at Middlesex Turnpike up Middlesex Turnpike to Mall Road with about a phase 3 and increase the water main size in there. But that's going to be some years out.
That's to supply Bedford or to get from Bedford?
That's to help supply Bedford, but also help redundancy in the Burlington system at the same time.
So is this the final sign?
We've worked with our consultants and everything is going to be okay to use the 24-inch pipe through it. So.
All right. Okay, it's nice to see it finally getting done. It's kind of nice. All right, is there anyone in the audience on this? Questions? No. Okay, so we have a negative conditional determination, just a few things on it. We'll review it and then what's that?
Should have made them into paper airplanes and just fire them at people. Okay. A new 24-inch water main will be installed within the Adams Street right-of-way extending from the Burlington-Lexington town line to the Middlesex Turnpike. This is the plan reference that is mentioned. The work would be within bordering land subject to flooding, riverfront area, inner 100 feet, and the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. Sorry, I said it was a jurisdictional stream, but it's, that's regulatory.
It's not within bordering land subject to flooding.
So we'll cross that out because they established the elevations. The Commission finds work will not permanently alter we'll change that to as the grade is above the BLSF elevation. Additionally, the Commission finds that the work within the locally regulated riverfront area would all be within paved roadway and thus will not alter the functions and values of the resource area. Because work would be within paved roadway, the Commission waived the requirements for an alternatives analysis. This decision is a negative determination of applicability. It's for this project only installation of 24-inch water main, no other work. Prior to beginning any other construction on site, sediment barriers shall be installed between the work area and the wetlands, and they shall remain in place while the work is being done. No trees are to be removed under this determination, no increase in impervious area under this determination, no filling or change of elevation under this determination, and any excavated materials not reused on site shall be disposed of off-site in a legal manner. No material, this addresses Gail's concern, no material, asphalt, concrete, soil shall be deposited within wetland, riverfront area or floodplain. And the applicant shall submit verification to the Conservation Commission that all materials were disposed of off-site in a legal manner. No stockpiling, fueling or overnight parking within 50 feet of wetlands, and members of the Commission and their representatives shall have the right to check up on this project.
So I had actually put in the condition about no filling or change of grade because I thought the work was within the floodplain. Since it's not, I think we should just change that, no filling or change of grade within the floodplain, because they are doing some filling for the shed,
Okay.
Okay.
but it's not in the floodplain.
Anybody in the commission have a change? John, do we need any condition relative to dealing with, if they have to do some dewatering at all? Is there anything needed from your point of view?
Yeah, we should have a standard dewatering condition.
Stephen did describe it, that they would use,
Yeah,
okay.
we'll include that.
Okay, so you're going to add in something that requires them to submit a little sketch of some sort of what they're doing?
Currently, actually, on the plan, if you bring it up on the bottom, is the detail of how we propose to do it.
On this plan?
Yep,
Oh, there it is.
the one on the very left there.
Here.
So we'll just put in a condition requiring that they notify us if they have to do that.
Just a notification then?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you folks have any questions at all, or are you all set with this?
I think we're good, Chief.
All set?
Oh, you're easy. Okay.
Well, he does all the work.
Oh, there you go. All right. Okay. If there's nothing further, could I,
I had one question.
oh, yes, we do, yes, you
You
do.
mentioned, John, that it says here that the commission waived the requirement for alternative analysis. We need to vote on such a waiver?
Sure. All right, could I have such a motion to waive the requirement of alternative analysis because,
It's in a paved roadway.
Yeah, this
Paved roadway?
is obviously the best alternative, putting it within the road as opposed to anywhere else in the riverfront.
due
so.
to being the most obvious alternative already presented and within the road? All right, is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? 500. Can I have a motion to issue a negative conditional determination for the project at 28 Adams Street under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 in the State Wetlands Protection Act? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Same vote.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with the project, thanks.
Have a good night. Great evening.
Okay, thanks for coming in. Okay, we're on item 6. It's a continued public hearing, a notice of intent. 25 Blanchard Road, otherwise known as Mary Cummings Park, and it's by the trustees. We're constructing a new boardwalk and improve and relocate existing trails. This is under DEP file number 122-639.
Good evening. I'm Rich Kirby from LEC Environmental, and with me tonight are the applicants from the trustees. You remember Jeremy Dick and Kathy McDonald.
All right, and they're both from the trustees.
No, one's from Boston.
What's
Yes,
that?
Both from the trustees, yes.
Okay, is there anyone here from the Friends? No. Wood?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. Just wanted to know. All right,
All right, so since we met with you 2 weeks ago, we had some discussion about the extent of wetland restoration that would be needed to mitigate for the wetland alteration associated with the proposed boardwalk and walking path. And it was discussed that perhaps instead of requiring the typical 2-to-1, we could go down to 1-to-1 for this particular area. Obviously, up on the other side by the athletic fields where we're altering the isolated wetland, we're still proposing 2-to-1 up there. But because of the nature of the area where we'd be preparing the wetland replication, it's a bit steep and it's all sort of vegetated well now. So we thought we could minimize our footprint by proposing a 1-to-1 area. So you can see here on the revised plan, we've reduced the footprint to about 1,300 square feet.
right.
Which is about cutting the size in half. We accordingly cut the number of sapling trees and shrubs in half, so it still will fill out the area. And that plan also contains a construction sequence that that Josh Hessenfuss put together. He was here last time presenting. He put that together and added it to the plan. So I think we've addressed all the concerns that the commission had at the last meeting, but we're happy to continue the discussion or answer any other questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. John, do we have any further issues that need discussion from your point of view?
So the one question I have is, so we're going to require monitoring of the replication area for 2 years, which is well beyond the end of the grant. What the funding for that monitoring will be. I presume you were hired with the grant money. I just want to make sure that somebody from, that will require a wetland scientist or a botanist to monitor the wetland replication area, and also get the certificate of compliance at the end, obtain the certificate of compliance. So if you could just talk about that process.
I think Jeremy has a good answer for that.
So we do have on staff, our ecology staff, we actually have the inland ecologist who could fit in. I can send you her credentials.
Okay.
If, we also have, Josh and I are both trained horticulturists. I'll be managing the park, and we might hire Rich as well. We have some options there.
Okay.
So I think we can send you a suite of options and see what.
All right,
that
so
fits.
there's no issues with getting that done after the grant expires?
Not within the, yeah, exactly. The park grant that we have isn't necessarily going to hold us up on that.
Okay. All right, are you satisfied with that?
That's it. Yep.
Sounds good. Okay. You can sit there if you want. It's real. Okay. Gail, anything on this?
Nope, that looks.
All right, Bill, anything further?
No.
All right, John, anything further?
No, this looks good, just what we're looking for.
Ed, anything further?
No, I wasn't here, but I got to see it all. It was quite a presentation that was done last month.
Yeah, it looks great. It does.
The only other thing that we wanted to bring up, and I'm not sure if perhaps you were going to talk about it with the draft order of conditions, is the performance bond associated with the wetland replication area.
Yes.
I know it's something that the commission typically requires of proponents that are developers and folks that the wetland restoration may not be their top priority.
Right.
And in this case, there's a little bit of concern that it could muddy the waters with the agreement between the city of Boston and the trustees.
I see.
We also are, I think, pretty confident that the trustees are going to do the work. This is part of their business and, part of the work that they do.
And they're not transferring to a different owner either.
Right, and they're not going anywhere, and, this work really needs to be done by June, frankly, so they're should be on task to get it done. We're hoping the commission might consider waiving the requirement for that performance bond.
All right. John, do you have, want to weigh in on that, or should we just talk about it?
I would agree. Typically, you don't require a performance bond for municipal projects or in generally nonprofit projects. You've had churches file. I agree. I put it in here with a bunch of question marks, but my recommendation is to not require a performance bond.
So you would remove that if we vote that way?
Right.
And, all right, so, I don't know if I asked you, Gail, you're all set with this?
We went down
I'm all
already.
set. I think waiving the bond is consistent with what we've done for other vendors.
All right, are you guys all set with that, doing that? All right, so we will have a motion to that effect. And I think if we're going to not adhere to our regulation of 2-to-1, we should just vote the waiver, and usually we state the reason. So if anybody refers to it and says, well, you did it for this, at least we have a reason why it was done. Okay, so do you want to review, the record should show no one's in the audience for it? Well, there's people in the audience, but not,
They already have them.
The applicants.
yeah, the applicant is here. Do they have a copy of the
They
draft?
got them by email, but
Yes, we have a electronic.
Follow along a bit? Have you had a chance to look at it?
Yes.
We have, yes.
All right, okay.
so we'll fly through this. They've reviewed it, and so I'll just call out stuff that's not typical standard stuff.
Right.
So on the findings, just a discussion of the replication of 1,300 square feet and 634 square feet. On page 2, the plan references have been updated, so all the plans, virtually all the plans were revised to include the replication area. Wetland values, so the work is within several different wetland resource areas, as you know. Under the additional filings on page 3 of the bylaw, there's a discussion about the parking area. Let's see. The commission finds that the performance meets, the work proposal meets performance standards for work within bordering land subject to flooding. There's an explanation of that. For work within riverfront area, there's an explanation of that. Proposal meets performance standards for BVW wetland and buffer zone mitigation, discussion of that. Once again, the total wetland alteration is under 5,000 square feet. Total riverfront area was was way less than 5,000 square feet. So that's basically it. The findings, the conditions. Condition 2 will be struck. That's the one about the surety.
Which page you on?
Page 5 of the bylaw decision.
Oh,
So
right.
Condition number 2 we will strike. And that's basically it for the bylaw. The order of conditions.
Yep.
Once again, the plan, the revised plans, standard pre-construction conditions on page 2. Erosion control conditions are standard. We did put in a requirement for additional erosion controls up near the parking lot. Let's see, I believe, right, condition 33. Pollution control conditions are standard. On page 5, there's perpetual conditions about the use of chemicals within 100 feet of wetlands or 200 feet of the perennial stream. Starting with condition 48 of the wetland replication or riverfront restoration conditions. Basically, 50 is a perpetual condition about the replication area being maintained as a wetland in perpetuity and not altered into a landscaped area. Condition 52 is what I was referencing earlier. So we are requiring a yearly report at the end of each of the first 2 growing seasons from a scientist, a wetland scientist or ecologist, reviewing the status of the replication area. Condition 53 is a requirement for the certificate of compliance that at least 3/4 of the plantings survive after 2 full growing seasons. And then 54 is just other stuff to get a certificate of compliance. So once again, 2 perpetual conditions will be recorded. One is for the chemicals, and the other is just that the created wetland replication area stays a wetland in perpetuity.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one comment.
Yeah.
Where the new parking lot's going in, I just happened to go by it and it just triggered on my mind coming over here tonight. Is you gonna have receptacles there for trash? Is that not a requirement?
No. It's a carry in, carry out.
Yeah. And that's consistent with 90% of our properties statewide, so,
Okay, I was just looking at what's happening about the soccer fields.
yeah.
Some of those people start parking down there for some reason, you know.
Yeah. And it'll be a signed condition as well within the parking lot on the kiosk. We'll have signs that speak to that.
Okay. Hopefully they follow that.
Yeah, we'll do, we'll do our best with the conditions we have, but.
Does that include carry out dog poop bags too? Do they have to carry those out or can they leave those there?
Yeah. I think people, they know that there's a service that come back and collect them at the end of the day.
Okay, all right. Anything on the left further?
Good?
Okay, anything on the right? That's good. 2 things. Does the requirement we have in there, I don't know, which condition says the monitoring, is the monitoring on?
53 maybe? I don't know, hold on.
Which one?
52.
2.
2?
Yep.
52. It says a qualified wetland scientist, field biologist. Does that cover all your options that you mentioned on who might do it?
I think it will, the field biologist would cover our staff.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure, because you mentioned staff, and we wanted to make sure it was clear that either that's acceptable or not acceptable, but I didn't want to exclude it by omission.
Yes. Yeah, I think this will work.
Oh, okay, all right. And the other, is there a condition in here that addresses if one of their machines goes in and digs it's wet and it digs a big rut, does it say they have to repair that? Or, fix it? Is there, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, the replication area will have to be constructed per the spec on the plan, and that shows.
I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about any machine that comes in that will traverse even though it's a wide track thing, that basically digs stuff up and just gonna be smooth.
Like tire ruts, things like that.
Tire rut, okay, yes, tire rut,
45 does
yes.
mention the mats.
Which one?
45 on the order.
45?
Mentions timber mats or equivalent shall be used for all wetland crossings unless the ground is completely frozen. So I think we're trying to prevent it rather than dealing with if it happens.
Wouldn't you normally see your repair if there's a rut made? You would just repair it?
Yeah, we would, depending on where it is and what caused it, we would try to flatten it out so it wouldn't be a hazard for people walking.
Typically, those are raked smooth and perhaps seeded, depending on where they are and relative to the walking path.
So I think we should have some phrase in there that says, and any rut that's, I was just could see, I mean, you just don't know when it's, you know, it gets to be a muddy day and next thing you know, there's a big rut there. You would do it, I'm sure you guys would do it anyway. It's not that I'm concerned you won't do it, but for the sake of completeness. Okay.
I think the negative the other determination also speaks to, you know, cleaning our way out when we're complete with that work as well, restoring to original condition.
Right, something like that.
Or better than original.
But yeah, I mean, there'll be, and again, it doesn't relate to the resource areas necessarily, but we'll be field mowing in the future too, and if a field is wet on a certain day and we leave ruts, that's something we would scrape back or try to ameliorate so people aren't tripping.
That's not a wetland,
Okay.
it's not a resource area. That wouldn't be a resource area.
Yeah, not a resource area.
Yeah. Okay, so, all right, so I guess we're ready to close this out. Could I have a motion to close the hearing on DEP file number 122-639?
So moved?
Second? Second. All in favor? 5-0-0. Could I have a motion to issue a waiver of the 2-to-1 replication ratio for wetlands replication in our regulations, and we're changing that to 1-to-1 because there's less likely environmental damage of building the replication area further into the hill that it's on. So moved. Yeah, did you do?
Oh, I was just going to say, if you wanted to clarify that in terms of precedent, I think last time we talked about the fact that the boardwalk itself would result in no wetland fill, and it was being constructed over the wetland. That was sort of what differentiated this project from others in town that might.
Go through the wetland.
Right.
So how would you phrase the motion? I'm not being facetious. I'm actually asking.
Waiving the 2-to-1 requirement, since the proposed boardwalk would result in less adverse impact to the wetland compared to a wetland fill.
Okay.
Of the same dimension, right, yeah.
Correct.
But also the 2-to-1, wouldn't it require cutting into the hill as well?
It would, yes.
I mean, that was like an 8-foot dig.
Yep.
I thought that was substantial.
I
So,
think, yes.
Could you add that in too? Both phrases. Thank you for your help. Okay, so, is there a motion to that effect? Someone moved it?
I move that messy motion, yes.
That messy motion?
So I'll actually beef up the findings to explain that a little better too, because I don't think it was explained well in the findings.
That would be great. I neglected to say that. Okay, and is there a second? All in favor? 5-0-0. There was something else besides voting this stuff.
The bond.
The bond, oh, yes. I'd like to have a motion to waive the bond for this project because
Because it's a nonprofit that's
it's a
improving
it's a nonprofit and it's consistent with other
public lands.
It's public lands and it's being done by a nonprofit and it's consistent with how we've done other nonprofit applicants. How's that? Not as messy. Second? Second. All in favor? 5-0-0. And then, could I have a motion to approve the findings under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 for DEP file number 122-639?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? Same vote. Are we going too fast? No, okay. Could I have can I have a motion to issue the order of conditions under both Burlington Bylaw Article 14 and the State Wetlands Protection Act for DEP file number 122-639?
Move.
Second? Second. All in favor? Same vote. And that's it. Okay, one other thing. Did you happen to see the article in the local newspaper?
Yes,
Oh, you did?
yeah.
Okay.
Kathy has issued a correction already, so,
A correction to who?
to the paper and to, Mark. Yeah.
Yes. I wanted to bring that up, because anybody who read that article the trustees was not mentioned at all. And so this enhancement to Mary Cummings Park is a result of the efforts by the trustees. Is it true to say that you folks applied for a park grant and were granted $300 and something thousand?
Correct.
That is correct. Is it also accurate to say that the trustees are putting in another couple of $100,000 of funds that have accumulated for the benefit of Mary Cummings Park as part of this project to be spent by June? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything else I should be saying?
And continued, we're seeking a 50-year management agreement
Yes.
to the park managers in collaboration with the City of Boston. Permanent conservation restriction on all parcels listed in Mary Cummings' will.
Okay. Now, this is a wonderful development. And not to diminish the effort that the Friends have made up to this point, I should point out that they have a continuing relationship with you. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, but it's just the only issue I had, since you're on the board, is that the article made it sound like the Friends was doing all these wonderful things, and like the trustees wasn't mentioned, and we know that the difficulty's been the Friends don't have those kind of financial resources to do that. So I thought, you know, it's a good result and it's a great story, but it didn't give any credit for the help that the Friends have played in this. So I thought it was worth letting the public know.
I agree.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Hope you're not offended.
Let me add to that too, is that since I moved here 7 years ago, got involved with the board to save the park, that this was one of the wishes that I had front end, and they didn't think I was really smart enough to come up with something like that.
Wishes, in what way? Wishes for?
That somebody from Boston get this place under control. And trustees weren't even in the equation, it's just somebody, Parks Commission, whatever it might be.
Right.
And when this all did happen, we welcome it without a doubt. But we're happy to be part of it, to stand in the background, whatever your needs might be for the board, obviously. A lot of effort John Sachs put into that park all by himself. You guys know the story, you know, but thank you.
I mean, I would think that the Friends of Mary Cummings Park would certainly play a role as land stewards, spotting issues that arise or anything, and will be the eyes and ears for any kind of activity that's not right out there or something that needs. The Friends continue a partnership with the people of the trustees.
Definitely. Yes.
Oh, simple one too was the parking lot you wanted to put in. I mentioned this to John the other day, that the missing thing is all the people, the Flyers Club, a lot of them have moved over to the Oracle parking lot when they park. It doesn't really count the vehicles that really would be in that parking lot.
Yeah.
They're afraid to go alongside the road now because they got to bring out these 6-foot wingspan planes and somebody's going to hit them.
Yeah.
So they park over at the Oracle place. So it's like invisible. There is traffic with parking that's sitting over there.
Right.
So without a doubt, the parking lot will have a good reason to be there.
Yes. Yeah.
No, this is a great arrangement, really great arrangement. All right, so is there any other comment from the commission? Anybody else want to say anything? Nope. Okay, good luck with the project.
Thank you.
I think you have the full support of the commission.
Great. Thank you all.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Next on the agenda is administrative things. We have a few things to take care of. Do we have any planning board comments we need to
Well, I'll comment on this, that this is before the planning board for a site plan for the parking lot, so I'll send a comment to the
Okay.
commission finished with it.
And subcommittee and staff reports.
We could do that either as this or other business, but the Public Land Preservation Act. I printed
Yes,
out
let's
the-
talk about the Public Lands Preservation Act. You folks remember that we sent around a letter? And John tells me that there were no edits.
Right.
Any comments? Anybody have comments now? No? All right, so we have a letter. First of all, I thought I would, I thought I would take 2 minutes and explain the subject, what we're talking about. House Bill, Senate Bill 459 and House Bill 732 is called the Public Lands Preservation Act, and essentially refers to Article 97. For example, the landlocked forest is Article 97 land. And that disposing of it requires a 2/3 vote of the legislature. This particular law would ensure that any dispositions of open land covered by Article 97 essentially will have no net loss. In other words, they'll be given the protection of a current policy. The Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, of Energy and Environmental Affairs, that says that any Article 97 lands need to be, if they are going to be withdrawn from Article 97 and put before the legislature as a vote, that they are going to be replaced somewhere else. It is a policy. A policy does not carry as much weight as an actual law. So what happens is there have been known occasions where some towns and cities have taken land for a valid use, like a school or something like that, open space, and they have essentially not replaced it and got away with not complying with the policy. Part of the reason is that that the strength of having that as a policy is not as strong as what a law could be. So this bill has been around for a while, and it's more does is it codifies what already is existing policy in the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, and essentially puts it in the form of a law, so it carries more weight. Okay, and so the intent of Article 97 is maintained that there be no net loss of open space, and so it complies with state policy, and that replacement land is provided of comparable acreage, location, and natural resource value. That's what is in existing policy, and this just puts it in law-type language. Also, it says that if this is enacted, the Public Lands Preservation Act would require an alternative analysis, which is also in the policy, and it also talks about transparency, that notification to the public would have to be made. Let go and no policy was adhered to, okay? And it would also establish a waiver exemption if there is a real true need. And essentially, why do we need to do this? Open space, okay, is a main component of dealing with climate change. It helps us absorb the carbon dioxide, and so it helps us, to a great extent, adapt to what's happening with our climate. It also, for obvious reasons, provides clean air, and open space protects our drinking water, and it provides, it helps absorb dirty runoff before it gets into various towns' drinking water supply. Okay, so what we are doing is we have a draft letter before us. We should read it out loud, and we should discuss it and vote on it if we need to. Okay, and then I believe John and Eileen have prepared an official copy on our letterhead for each of us to sign. Is that?
Well, you did the letter, so you just put a space for the chair and vice chair.
Okay, well, whatever. I don't mind if everyone
I put it
signs.
on letterhead, but
yeah, I don't mind if everyone signs, whatever, if they want to. Okay? The whole idea of the letter is to urge our senator to do everything she can to move this piece of legislation along to be enacted. All right, so it says here, Dear Senator Friedman, we are writing to communicate the support of the Burlington Conservation Commission for the Public Lands Preservation Act, Senate Bill 459, a bill which would provide needed protection for our public parks, our playgrounds, our forests, and our natural resource lands. The Public Lands Preservation Act would stem the continuous loss of public parks, conservation land, watersheds, and other natural resource lands as state agencies, cities, and towns divert the land to other uses, mostly for building projects. The bill would add transparency to land dispositions involving Article 97 land and would clarify the disposition process, providing efficiency and potential cost savings for municipalities. The bill would ensure the integrity of Article 97 is upheld. The legislation is important to the Commission because Burlington has several Article 97 properties, the largest of which by far is known as the landlocked forest, which was recently zoned as open space parcel. The parcel is so named because of its location between Route 62, Route 3, and Route 128 in Burlington, and conservation land in Bedford and Lexington. The Commission has seen repeated efforts over the years to develop all or part of this resource. It is vital for the community that this parcel be protected for its value in enhancing water quality, providing wildlife habitat, and for the benefits and therapy of passive recreation in a natural environment. The Burlington Conservation Commission is aware that this bill is in the Senate Committee on Ways and Means. We recognize that in the past you have made this legislation a priority. The Commission certainly appreciates your past support. However, we ask if you now would contact Senate President Karen Spilker and Chairman of Ways and Means Michael Rodriguez to ask for this Public Lands Preservation Act bill to be enacted. We also ask if you could reach out to your Senate colleagues and ask for their support and get this bill reported out of committee and voted upon by the full Senate. We have attached a fact sheet for your easy reference to this letter. Your assistance with this matter would be very much appreciated. Best regards, and the Commission. All right. Comments?
Well put.
Comments?
You know, it's definitely something that should be required, you know. It's no different than, you know, replacing the wetlands that are violated or disturbed, you know. You got to replace them with equivalent value, and that's what this is saying. If any of the Chapter 97 stuff is developed, then you have to replace it with equivalent environmental value.
And everybody knows Burlington is at the lower end of the percentage of open space compared to other towns. Okay? We have some, and I don't think we can afford to lose any. So this Public Lands Preservation Act is actually important to the Commission and any of our citizens who appreciate open space. John?
I just have a question. So did you update, is this still the same Senate President and Chairman, Ways and Means Chair? Is this current, or did you take that off the last letter?
No, I took it off of the email from Saunders.
Yeah, okay.
I assume it's current. I assume he knows.
Right, I'm sure he does.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so could I have a vote of support for sending a letter to our state senator Cindy Friedman on the subject of the Public Lands Preservation Act, Senate Bill 459? Is there a motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, 5-0-0. Okay, you'll send that around and we'll move on. Okay, is there...
To Dawn, should she get attached to the minutes, or is that too much?
We can scan it and send it to you.
All right, I have a colored copy of this attachment if you want it, if you need it.
No, I have it in color too. I just did it in black and white. But.
Oh, okay. Well, color's nice. Okay.
I also have it.
All right, is there anything else?
Nope.
And when would Cindy get that? Do we know roughly?
I would say probably Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll probably mail it out tomorrow. Monday's a holiday.
a meeting with Cindy in about another week.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We'll have it before then.
Yeah, it'd be good, you could
I can put a
mention
plug
it.
in on that. I
Yeah,
will do it
absolutely,
at that
that
time.
would be great. Okay.
Talking about climate control, actually.
One more.
There you go. Now we'll sign it.
All right. We have a few other signatures here coming at you for the hearing we just closed. Okay. Okay, we have one other item. Brief 2-minute item. All right, under other business. The Citizens Committee called Vote Yes CPA for Burlington is bringing before town meeting a warrant article to put Community Preservation Act on the ballot. Community Preservation Act talks about affordable housing, money's being spent on raised for affordable housing, historical preservation, open space, and conservation commission type projects. And as an incentive to do this, if we collect a little bit of tax, the average resident would pay $65 to $75 per year. The state will match a certain percentage of that money. And regardless of whether you spend the money that year or not, they send you a check every November. And so it's probably a pretty good deal. And even for low-income people, the Community Preservation Act has exemptions that are very generous. And so if you really can't afford it, you're on fixed income, you waive it. All right. So one of the things that we're going to be going before each of the major committees, the Historical Commission, the Housing Authority, Housing Commission, the Recreation, and the Conservation Commission, is we need your best thoughts on projects that we could do if we had that money. In other words, if you are familiar with certain, this is also for you folks, John and Eileen, if you're familiar with certain conservation areas, that we would do this or do that. If anything comes to mind, right now we have sort of generic things, provide parking space and things like that. But if you can think of anything that, here's specific things that we would do if those monies were available, that we could do. Some folks have said that there's not that much that could be done with the money in Burlington. We just don't need it. We don't have those kinds of projects. We don't have those kind of needs. And I have to believe that that's not true.
We could spend it on invasive removal alone.
Right,
Trail
right.
maintenance, and there's a lot of trails that are.
But if there's anything in particular, anything specific to a particular conservation area, if you see something that would be really nice, whether it's a bird watching stand at a certain area or whatever the case, those kind of projects can be funded. I would appreciate the input.
Well, land acquisition's the obvious one.
Yeah.
Right.
There's still land that is adjacent to Sawmill Conservation Area
That's the kind of phrase that I need, is potential lands in that area, things like that. Because when we're being asked at town meeting, it would be nice to be armed with,
You could
this
just
is what the
access
commission thinks.
I mean, the previous documents that were put together for that parcel, I mean, we have documentation on it.
Oh, yeah, we don't need a lot of detail. I just need, there are some parcels adjacent to Sawmill Brook Conservation Area, okay, and that we've had our eye on for a while that might come available in the future. If you know other things like that, that are just specific to conservation areas or things that we do, that we would call conservation projects, would be very helpful. All the other committees are going to be asked the same thing.
But there are also areas on that trail towards the school where there are areas that are always wet that could be improved with crossings.
if you could just send me that stuff, it will get onto the list, it'd be very, very helpful. Okay? Anything you can think of. All right? And I know, John, you've walked a lot of our areas. If you've seen things that need attention, it would be, that we should spend some money on, if we had it.
Okay.
That would be very helpful. Okay, Sam?
Well, I just had one coming up the other day, somebody hit another turtle on Wheeler Road, good sized one too. Does it make sense to put a conduit under the road so these turtles?
They find that those aren't very effective, that they're not a good solution.
You had a turtle hit the other day?
Yeah, that's kind of weird time of year for a turtle to
Yeah.
be moving around.
I was surprised, it was just enough warmth, I guess, or something for that turtle to want to cross the road, and somebody just
Odd.
whacked it good.
Really odd. Sure wasn't like somebody's pet turtle they let out,
Just a snapper.
like a snapper.
Really?
And see if it was,
But does that
My
qualify
husband
something
driving by,
like
he
that
stopped
to
and
find an accessible point for wildlife?
Check it out with the
Certainly-
office. That's all I can say.
I don't know.
Certainly a consultant to discuss what possibilities could exist, that would be a expenditure, that would be good, what could we do to help prevent that in the future? Something like that.
I mean, this is not a conservation project, but when we were walking on that certificate walk the other day, yesterday, okay, we're walking by that old cemetery. A lot of towns have actually restored their cemeteries and redid the gravestones
Yeah.
so that
Freshen
they're,
them up.
We did that
Freshen
in
them up.
Lexington one year, yeah.
yeah, I mean, like, it's not a conservation project, but you can barely read what's on them anymore. They're so weathered. So I'm sure the historical people would love to see that done.
Interesting, what that
Who
list
would-
would look like.
can you use it for funds for like if you wanted a survey done of either, like if you need either land survey or kind of fauna, flora survey, that kind of thing?
On existing conservation, you
I don't
mean?
know, can you use funds for that kind of thing?
I'm not sure.
I would think you could. A survey to determine what is there, I'd like the land of the flora and fauna survey, I was thinking the same thing.
Community Preservation Act funds can be used to hire a consultant, to develop a plan, to do engineering, to do designs. I mean, so, when you're thinking of projects, if could be substantial where some amount of engineering is needed, just phrase it that way.
MVP, yeah.
Okay, it would be really very helpful before we get to town meeting if we had that list. It would be very helpful.
Was the sculpture park something that falls in that?
No,
Is that recreation? I don't know.
no, I don't think so.
I'm not sure.
It's active recreation.
It's a good thing. I'll do a search of all the projects that have ever been done, see if the sculpture park comes up at all.
I get it was.
You can have a dog park, you can have a second dog park.
Yeah.
That's a thought.
We already have one.
Maintenance of the
Yeah.
existing one.
We already have one.
You don't want a second one? No, okay.
Well, the disc golf course, it looks like it's in disrepair right now.
The what?
The disc golf course
Oh,
in Sutton's Park.
that's recreation.
Oh,
Oh, that's recognition, that's true.
yeah, yeah. How about the skate park? Do we still have that skate park in
Yep.
Simon's Park?
Yes.
It's recreation too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's recreation.
You know, they're all recreation.
Town meeting recently funded paving and lighting,
I mean,
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
the typical things is kiosks and information posters and stuff like that. Okay, and the signboards and wayfinding signs and things like that. Those are typical smaller projects that could be used, you could spend community preservation funds on.
Improving access.
The bigger projects obviously are boardwalks, pedestrian walkways, things of that nature that would certainly fall under.
Look what the Friends, what the Mary Cummings Park is doing, the project we just approved. Part of it is increasing the penetration that a wheelchair can make into the park. You
Right.
could do that on any of our conservation lands. You could improve the amount of access that's available,
Absolutely.
something like that, and that's not inexpensive.
If you guys could just brainstorm, and we
We could also
can,
look at the open space and recreation plan that we just completed last year, because that included a survey to the public.
that's a very good
And,
suggestion.
what they thought was important, like
That is a very
accessibility and
good
even just
Yeah,
knowledge.
A lot of brainstorming went into that, yeah.
EPA guy that comes out to do the Mary Cummings Park ponds, to test them for bacteria and whatnot, he came up with that idea. He said, this is a perfect park for wheelchairs.
Really?
Yeah. He meant it too, he was very serious about it.
Well, the boardwalk will be 4 feet wide, right? I think. Wide enough for a wheelchair. Okay, so anyways, if you folks could feed us stuff before we get to town meeting, it would be very helpful, really. All right?
Use this video.
What?
You can use this video to refresh what we just said, too. We'll look it up and write it down over the minutes.
Right, right. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor? That was unanimous. All right, good evening.